this data, and you did an excellent job here, but if this was an annual checkup, would the doctor say that we're in poor health and we better do something fast? Or do we need a personal trainer? Can we fix these problems ourselves?
So it's a great question, and the analogy is nice too. Should the doctor be concerned? It all depends on the state that the patient was in before this checkup. So from my perspective, and from what the study shows and looking at this year over year, the trend is actually headed in the right direction. Stats still speak to opportunities for major improvements that we do have control over. But I think one of the most inspiring sort of data points that we're seeing is just the interactions brands are now having with bloggers. Where before, when I started at Technorati 4 years ago, there was this taboo around UGC, and no brand wanted to be around an area where it was unmoderated in their minds, or potential for flaming and that kind of stuff. And so they were scared of this environment. And they weren't looking at you guys as professionals. They were looking at you as all hobbyists. You were personal journaling your life. That wasn't something important to a brand. What we've been doing in Technorati is nothing but evangelizing the importance of your influence on your audience and how well that's grown. And we've seen the advertiser adoption and understanding of this to the point that they are now making you spoke bloggers. They are looking at blogger ambassador programs. They are looking to pay you for your opinion and pay you to write something about a topic of interest to their target audience or about their product or service. Does it still have a long way to go? Hell yeah. But I think the trend is actually a positive one, which is important.
What does it say about us, though, that if our number one influencer is other bloggers, are we all just sort of belly button gazing? Are we all just kind of staring down and going, look at mine, you've got one too? I mean, are we actually, are any of our thoughts original, or is everybody just sort of feeding off of what everybody else is doing? I mean, you take a look at the number of retweets versus original tweets, and it seems that content curation and content marketing now says, oh, you need to be retweeting and curating content. So is that problematic?
Yes and no. It's problematic for the bloggers spending a lot of time doing that. And I mean the bloggers that are sit there and regurgitating others' content instead of adding their own. But what you'll see, and I think most of you do from your audiences are going to determine whether or not that's relevant. So, to the extent that you bring new and original ideas to the table, audiences will respect and follow and stay loyal to you. When you're just regurgitating and creating an echo chamber for what's already been said, you're going to lose followers. There's too much noise out there. So why, continue adding to that noise with stuff that isn't your own? I think there's a trend that bloggers are looking at basically being more sort of focused on what their content is and what their sort of topic of specialty is, so that they can really start to be subject matter experts for it, as opposed to know everything about everything and just be constantly keeping a lot of content out there, whether it's theirs or not.
I received a pitch the other day from a public relations agency that thought that I would find it newsworthy that 10 leading bloggers feel that the economy isn't really in the tank, but instead it's rebounding. And I went out and I took a look at who these leading bloggers were, and they were all actually, their bios all said that they were economists. And so when I contacted the PR rep back, I said, now, are these economists or are they bloggers? And she said, oh, they're bloggers. What is a blog? I mean, just specifically from your standpoint, is Huffington Post a blog? Was it ever a blog? Is it still a blog? Is a website that has comment-enabled content that's presented in reverse chronicle order a blog? How do you guys define a blog, and how do you define a blogger? And in this particular case, are these people just economists who happen to write, and where it appears is on a website that can also be called a blog?
So it is an interesting question, because I think where blogs started and where they are today, there's so much gray area between even a traditional news source and a blog, because you have investigative bloggers who are out there, taking facts and actually writing pretty much what traditional journalists do. And then you also have traditional journalists having their own blog and writing opinions. So there is a sort of gray area as far as the content itself describing what a blog or blog isn't. Where blogs started from a definition standpoint was, basically in the beginning, what was it, back in 96 or whatnot, that it was an area of a website that would be updated frequently. So as opposed to, creating an article and that becomes static, and then you move on to the next article and that becomes static content, a blog was a place you updated regularly. In addition, it was something that had a reverse chronology of of how it was organized. And that was the only definition really of a blog. It's come to mean many different things to many people, but I think it's really, we define it more about the independence that an author will have, and it can be a combination of authors. But the more independent they are, as far as where their opinions and thought leadership and everything else comes from, that to us is more of the true definition of a blog. It's an open forum for them to not be constrained by a publisher or whatever else about the subject matter they're going to talk about, or about approval of being able to say certain things.
But when you say open forum, is it a two-way forum? Is it a two-way form of communication?
Definitely.
In other words, like Seth Godin, does he have a blog, or does he just have a website where he presents content in reverse chronological order? Because commenting is not enabled.
Yeah, commenting doesn't need to define a blog or not. I think it defines a good blog, because I think you want to have that social interaction with your audience and be able to get the feedback from your audience in a way that helps you shape better the content. But some people don't like to do that, and that's okay too, right? It doesn't make them less of a blogger because they want to create sort of more one-way communication on it.
But when we talk about the state of the blogosphere and going back to those issues of brands not taking the pros, at least, or maybe even some of the hobbyists who have large followings, seriously, is it because we have a hard time defining exactly who we are, what we do, why it's different, and why it matters? Because there are so many different forms of what we do, because there is no sort of base level of acceptability?
Yeah, there's nobody sitting in and saying, you're a blog, but you're not a blog. Or you're 90% of a blog, but you're 30%. And you have the chance to now get to the full 100 if you do this, this, and this, and this. There's nobody out there policing that or enforcing that or creating a standardization against it.
But you guys kind of used to, didn't you?
Not
in
from the sense of...
From a perception standpoint.
From a perception, and it's sort of more sentiment. I mean, what we did early on and got overwhelmed by was basically, when I started at Technorati, the stats were staggering. We were filtering 98% of what we were indexing was spam. Right? It was not original content. It was people regurgitating stuff just to get SEO value and promote affiliate programs and that kind of stuff. And so we were working our butts off to keep that spam out of there and keep the true originators of great content, at the forefront of discovery. Now, blogs have definitely sort of eroded as far as the boundaries by what you can call a blog, but I don't think that lessens the content in there. We still look at it as the independent web is what blogs are. There are people with great thoughts, great opinions, that have an audience, and they interact with them in unique ways, and they do great things with them, and that's how